Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS. College football week 3. We're into Saturday. Same situation as last week. Going to get through as many games as I can. Not going to get to them all. I think once we get into conference play, I should have a good shot of getting through all of them. But early in the season, it's tough. You have to keep going back to 2024 stuff for reference. So not going to get to them all. Going to get to as many as I can. Let's do it. I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points? I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly.
Dog walking.
I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. Clemson, Georgia Tech is up first, and if you've been following along with this one, you already know Georgia Tech got hit pretty heavy here. There were 6.5s open at Circa, dropped down to 5.5, 4, 3.5, down to 3. Limits are now at 30K, and we're sitting at 3. So all the early money has been on Georgia Tech in this one. Clemson, Georgia Tech at noon. So let's talk about Clemson. The story with this Clemson team so far, I'd say, well, there's multiple stories. But I'd say if there's one area you can point at for Clemson and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a problem or this might be a problem, it's the offensive line. What is going on here? So week 1 happened against LSU, and I think a lot of people chalk that up to LSU's defense. And more of the talk was around LSU's defense being elite rather than Clemson's offensive line getting bullied. Now, they did lose 2 starters in that game to injury, and we'll talk about that in a second. But after that opener against LSU, the talk was kind of about how elite LSU's defensive front looked. Klubnik was under a ton of pressure in that game. You don't need me to tell you that. You already know. Then we get to week 2, and we're at home playing Troy, and Klubnik is pressured on 33.3% of his dropbacks. Now, is that a practical joke amount? No. Were they missing 2 starters in the game? Yes. But still, I mean, this is a Sun Belt opponent, and you're at home coming off a loss, and the offensive line was struggling to keep Klubnik protected in the pocket. Now, I do want to be fair. Troy's defensive front may be very good this year. I was hyping them up in the offseason. I think I said something like this could sneakily be one of the best defensive fronts in the Sun Belt. So I think Troy does have a strong defensive front, but, I mean, this is Clemson at home. It doesn't matter. It's a Sun Belt defense. It shouldn't give you problems like that, and Troy was getting there, man. So, yeah, we've got concerns about this Clemson offensive line. Now, if you're a Clemson fan, you're probably pointing at the injuries, and I suppose that's fair. Good news on that front, by the way. It looks like Walker Parks, the right guard, he was third-team all-conference last year. It looks like he might be back for this game against Georgia Tech. So there is some good news on the injury front. I'm not sure if the left tackle, Tristan Lee, I don't think he's going to play. I can't find anything confirming that. So I don't think you're going to get the left tackle back. But Walker Parks, I think, will be back for this one. So it looks like Clemson will get at least one of the injured pieces back on the offensive line. And they're going to need it because this Georgia Tech defense, I mean, this defensive front is much stronger. Well, it's only been a couple games. We don't want to overreact, but 16th in success rate per rush so far this season. This is not going to be a defensive front that Clemson could just bully, especially missing the left tackle there. Oh, and also Antonio Williams, the star wide receiver for Clemson, first team ACC last year. I don't know if he's going to be back. He didn't play in the Troy game. I'm not finding anything definitive on that. So they might be missing their star receiver again as well. So this Georgia Tech defense is not going to be a cakewalk. They look really good in the Colorado game. They put a lot of pressure on Salter. Yeah, I'm worried about the Clemson offense. I think they need, hopefully getting one piece back on the offensive line should help. But do I think Clemson offensively is going to be much better the rest of the season? Yes, I do. I just have to express my concerns. What we saw the last couple of weeks, definitely concerning. Now, on the other side of the ball, this is where I'm much more of a believer in Clemson. The numbers don't really show it so far this year. It looks, if you look at this graphic, it looks like they're playing mediocre defense. In my opinion, that's not really the case. They're going to need to be on their A game. Let's talk about the Georgia Tech offense. An absolute steamrolling rushing attack here. What they did to Colorado and Boulder should be illegal. They rushed for 320 yards, over 6.8 yards per carry in that game. So, yeah, I mean, we were expecting that coming into the season between Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, and most of the offensive line back. We knew Georgia Tech was going to have a very strong run-first offense. So this shouldn't be surprising. That being said, despite everything going on with the Clemson program right now, the talk of their struggles, being down 16-0 to Troy in the second quarter, despite all of that, this team is not getting run on. Through their first 2 games, they're allowing less than 3 yards per carry. This defensive line is very, very good, and this is one area of the team I have a lot of faith in. So I think Georgia Tech's offense, although it's one of the strongest rushing attacks in the country, I think they're in for a wake-up call here. I don't think they're going to be able to generate much push against this Clemson defensive line, and I think they're going to struggle to move the ball because Haynes King, as dominant of a rusher as he is, and Jamal Haynes, we know they can run the ball. I'm not sold on Georgia Tech as an elite passing attack. So I think this is going to be a real struggle for Georgia Tech offensively, which is why when it comes to betting this game, I don't have a bet on it, but I would go under 54.5, slight lean towards the Clemson side at -3.5, but pick for the game would be the under. Memphis on the road at Troy. If you were on it on Sunday afternoon, you could have got a Troy +7 on some rec books. Unfortunately, I didn't grab one. It's now at 3.5. Looks like Troy took some more money at 4.5. Limits are up to 10K, and we're looking at 4. Memphis, Troy. This Memphis offense is putting up some nice-looking numbers so far this season. I'm still not 100% sold on Brendan Lewis at quarterback, but I think that might be just because I can't really picture it. Hennigan's been the quarterback there at Memphis for what feels like 10 years, so I can't really picture with Memphis not having a pocket passer because that's what Silverfield, it feels like, has always had. So maybe it could just be that I can't picture it. So far, it's been pretty good. I mean, 30th in success rate, 26th in PPA offensively. They haven't played anybody. Their tougher game was on the road against Georgia State, which is not a good Sun Belt program. They were able to run the ball successfully. 205 yards rushing in the game, 5.13 yards per carry. So the rushing attack was working for Memphis in this one. But again, Georgia State is not a good football team. I very seriously doubt they're going to have that same success running the ball against this Troy defense. As I said before when I was talking about Clemson, I think this is one of the strongest defensive front sevens in the Sun Belt. I don't think there's going to be many teams that are able to run the ball on Troy. Honestly, I think they're very good up front. Last week they went on the road in Clemson. We were just talking about this. 3.87 yards per carry allowed on the road in Clemson. So that success Memphis had running the ball in Georgia State, very seriously doubt they're going to have the same sort of success here against Troy. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Brendan Lewis to make throws, and I'm just not sure I trust him to do that. That's not what he did at Nevada. Also, can this Memphis offensive line keep Brendan Lewis protected? Last week against Georgia State, he was pressured on 48% of his dropbacks. I mean, it's Georgia State. They still won and covered. It's just Troy, we just saw them pressuring Klubnik in Clemson. So I really like the matchup for this Troy defensive front, and I think this is going to be the first time we see the effects of the post-Hennigan era here at Memphis. I think they're really going to wish they had a quarterback that could make the throws. Not sure Brendan Lewis can make them. So I think Memphis is really going to struggle offensively. Now, on the other side of the ball, I can't say I love the matchup for Troy, but we don't have a very large sample size, as you know. But Memphis, their numbers against the pass in that Georgia State game, what the hell? 120th in the country in success rate per dropback. Again, it's only been 2 games. But TJ Finley and Cameron Brown, those are the quarterbacks that were playing for Georgia Tech. TJ Finley, remember him from Auburn? Not exactly a dynamic thrower of the football. I mean, they got cooked for 340 yards through the air, 48.9% success rate per dropback. They were struggling to stop the Georgia State passing attack, the combination of TJ Finley and Cameron Brown at quarterback. Goose Crowder, look, is Goose Crowder a Heisman Trophy candidate? No, but he's a returning starter. He can throw the ball. He's got an experienced offensive line coming back in front of him. I think Troy's going to be able to move the ball. I think Troy's going to win this game, honestly. I am kicking myself because when these lines were opening up on Sunday afternoon, there was a Troy +7, and I swear I was staring at it. I was like, ooh, Troy +7, yeah. It's down to 4.5 now. So I'm kicking myself for not taking it. But it would still be Troy at the +4.5. I think this should be under a field goal. I'm big on this Troy team. So give me the Trojans in this one. Oklahoma on the road at Temple. This was at 24. Took some Temple money. Dropped down to 21. Took some Oklahoma money. Looks like we're back up to 24 now. Limits are at 10K. Oklahoma Temple. What in the KC Keeler is going on here? Yes, I know they played UMass and Howard, but This is nuts, man. I mean, in their first two games, Temple is averaging 48.5 points per game. They're allowing 8.5 points per game. Now, we know what Casey Keeler did with the Sam Houston State program. Most college football heads were calling this a great hire. So far, they're looking 100% correct. I just don't know if we were expecting them to start routing teams immediately. That's crazy. Year one for Casey Keeler at head coach. Now, obviously, they're playing Oklahoma. They're not expected to win or even compete in this game. But I got to say, is there a better possible spot to play Oklahoma coming off the huge primetime win over Michigan? Now you go to Philly to play a nothing game against Temple. Then you immediately come back home to play Auburn, call it a sandwich spot or a flat spot or a trap spot, whatever terminology you want to use. This fits the criteria. Now, if you're looking for a reason to bet Temple here, I mean, you can point at that weird-ass misdirection Casey Keeler offense. If you're unfamiliar with Casey Keeler, he kind of does what McDaniel does with the Dolphins, like a lot of motion, a lot of misdirection runs, like tight end goes in motion to the left, the running back goes to the right, and they fake the handoff or they pull it, and he follows the tight end, and there's just people running in all kinds of directions in the offense. It's a very off-kiltered misdirection, run-first offense. And the reason I'm bringing that up, the strength of this Oklahoma defense is their defensive line. Specifically, they have monsters in the middle. I believe they have 3 starters on that defensive line. All 3 might get drafted, and they're all 325-plus pounds. They've got monsters on that defensive line. Casey Keeler's offense, the entire objective of it is to get their opponent's defensive linemen off-balanced. So these guys are obviously NFL-caliber talents, but 325 pounds when you got receivers coming in motion, running backs going this way, could get them off balance. And this just might be a really annoying matchup for Oklahoma to play in a quote-unquote sandwich spot. So it would only be Temple. I wrote down Temple plus 24 or pass. That's at 23.5 now. So, yeah, give me Temple plus 23.5 in this one. Oregon Northwestern was at 26.5, then 27.5. They upped the limits to 10K. Looks like Oregon did take some money at 27.5, went up to 28, and then actually Northwestern got hit. Looks like we're sitting at 27 at the time of recording. Oregon Northwestern. This game is being played in Northwestern's temporary stadium, which is right next to the lake there, which means windy conditions. And you would think maybe Northwestern could use that as sort of like a home field advantage. But the way these two teams are built doesn't help Northwestern at all. This has been a pass-first offense all the way. I'm sure some of that comes from the fact that they were down the entire Tulane game. But Northwestern's 13th in the country in passing frequency. Oregon's the one that's been running the football. And on top of that, if we're thinking, hey, maybe Northwestern could try running the football in this game, their star running back, Cam Porter, out for the season. So just more bad news here for Northwestern. Now, one thing I will say for Northwestern, they got absolutely cooked on the ground in that opener against Tulane. 269 yards rushing. That's what they allowed against Tulane. 6.4 yards per carry. Success rate per rush just under 54%. Those are terrible numbers. Tulane ran all over Northwestern. I do want to say I don't expect Northwestern's defensive front to be that bad, though. In fact, I actually wouldn't be surprised if Northwestern plays some tough defense up front the rest of the season. It was the first game of the season. They were on the road, and Preston Stone did that defense zero favors. He threw like 4 or 5 interceptions in the game, just kept putting his defense in bad spots. So I think that was kind of just like the perfect storm. I actually kind of like this Northwestern defensive front. I like the transfers they brought in. They bring back some production. I think this is going to be a pretty strong run defense. And look, Oregon has basically just steamrolled both opponents they've seen so far this year, Missouri State and Oklahoma State. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Oregon's offense stuttering a little bit for the first time this year. So don't be surprised if Northwestern's defensive front actually puts up a fight here against the Ducks. Now, can we count on Northwestern to move the football, though? As we know, it was absolutely terrible in that opener against Tulane, and this is coming from someone that bet Northwestern plus 6.5. I do have good news. Preston Stone seemed to get himself back on track. Yes, it was against an FCS opponent last week, but still good to see Preston Stone making the throws. It's a good sign. Northwestern put up 42 points, over 7.5 yards per play, and Preston Stone had himself a really nice-looking stat line. Yeah, he wasn't pressured a whole lot, but handled the pressure well. So that's a great sign for Northwestern. Personally, I think 28.5. Wow, it's down to 27.5. It was just at 28.5 before. That must have just moved within the last 30, 40 minutes. So I think 28.5 is too high. So 27.5. Yeah, I still think that's too high. I would have this closer to 3 touchdowns. So it would be Northwestern. I also like the under 48.5. You can get a 49. So under 49, Northwestern plus 27.5. There's a 28 open. Northwestern plus 28. As of right now, I don't have a bet in this game, though. I'm pretty scarred from that opener. So Northwestern under a pass. Buffalo, Kent State. Looks like Buffalo's been getting hit in this one. It was at 21. They upped the limits to 10K. It was at 21.5, and now it's up at 23.5. So it looks like Buffalo did get hit, although 22 is not exactly a key number. So a move from 21.5 to 23.5, not as crazy as it looks. Buffalo, Kent State at noon, and this Buffalo passing attack has been concerning. I mean, it's only been a couple games, and we don't want to draw any major conclusions, but it's looking like Roberson is not going to give us the same production at quarterback that Abana gave us last year. This passing attack's been really bad for Buffalo. Now, Roberson struggled in the opener, and you got to cut him some slack for that one. It was on the road in Minnesota, a Big Ten defense. So, okay, no big deal that he struggled in that game. But last week he played St. Francis, Pennsylvania at home, and he struggled in that game. He was not good throwing the football at all. So I'm not sure if I trust Buffalo to throw the football at all, even against Kent State. I don't know if they have a passing attack this year, and that's concerning. So I'm definitely hesitant about laying 3 touchdowns on the road with a team that doesn't have a passing attack. That being said, Buffalo can definitely run the football in this game. I mean, I just mentioned the game against St. Francis, Pennsylvania. Roberson was then unable to throw the ball. They still won that game 45-6. This Buffalo rushing attack looks every bit as good as advertised. Remember, they brought back basically the entire offensive line. They're all-conference running back. So even though I don't trust Buffalo's passing attack, I don't think Roberson's a very good thrower of the football. They should have no problems running the ball on Kent State. So still not crazy about the idea of laying 3 touchdowns, but I don't know how Kent State's defense gets off the field. And on the other side, shout out to Buffalo's defense. There was a lot of hype surrounding the Buffalo defense coming into the year. This was not a good defense last year, but they were bringing back basically their entire defense. So people were pretty big on them. The defensive front is playing well. 31st in success rate per rush, 19th in PPA per rush. And the performance they had on the road in Minnesota, this is solid, man. Yes, Minnesota has a redshirt freshman quarterback making his first start, okay. But this is on the road against a Big Ten opponent, and Minnesota's got Darius Taylor running the ball. Just superstar running back right there. They've got a pretty good offensive line. So to hold Minnesota to 23 points, 5.61 yards per play, that's a solid defensive effort. Kent State's offense is absolute piss. They scored 21 points against Merrimack, success rate under 36%. This is not an FBS offense. So yeah, it would only, as far as betting the game, it would only be Buffalo for me. Can you get a 21 or better? Now it's 21.5, 22. I even see a 22.5 now. It would only be Buffalo, but I'm going to need 21 or better to do it. Central Michigan. This one was hovering below 4 touchdowns. The limits are up to 10K, and we're at 28 now. So it looks like Circa has this at a flat 28. Central Michigan. Will Matt Drinkwall's option offense find success here on the road at the Big House? On paper, I'd say it looks like a definite no. Central Michigan's offense has not been very efficient this year. They did pick up a big win against San Jose State, but they're 123rd in success rate offensively. Last week against Pitt was a very, very ugly performance for the Central Michigan offense. 17 points, 3.19 yards per play is ugly. Success rate under 27%. And this is supposed to be an option offense, right? A rushing offense. They had 40 yards rushing in the game. Just not a good look for Central Michigan's offense. Now, Pitt has a great defensive front. That's probably going to be a top 25 run defense. So we want to cut them a little bit of slack, but Michigan's going to be a top 25 run defense as well. In their first 2 games, they played New Mexico and Oklahoma. They're allowing 2.76 yards per carry. This is a tough run defense also. So don't have a ton of faith in this Central Michigan offense. I suppose if you want to say this could be a flat spot for Michigan coming off the big Oklahoma game on prime time. Now you come home for this nothing game, and it's a weird, unique offense. It's an offense that runs the option. So maybe like a flat spot or a letdown spot, but I'm kind of just playing devil's advocate here. I don't really see Central Michigan moving the football. On the other side of the ball, though, this is where, if you're trying to take the points with Central Michigan, this is where you can make a case. This Michigan offensive line lost another piece in the Oklahoma game. El Hadi, their right guard, probably the best player on their offensive line. He left the Oklahoma game early, and he's listed as day-to-day. I'm not sure if he plays in this game against Central Michigan. And remember, this is an offensive line that's already dealing with some injuries. That freshman they have starting, Andrew Sprague, he almost didn't play in that Oklahoma game. So, I mean, if El Hadi doesn't play, and from what I'm reading, it doesn't look like he's going to, that's their best offensive lineman, Michigan's going to have 2 freshmen starting on this offensive line, and one of them is dealing with an injury himself. So this Michigan offensive line is a concern. Now, as far as Bryce Underwood, I mean, he was on the road against Oklahoma. It's one of the best defenses in the country. Yeah, he struggled. It was a bad game for him, but most quarterbacks are not having good games on the road in Oklahoma. In fact, there might be 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the country that you can count on going into Oklahoma and throwing the ball successfully this year. So not overreacting to this. We still haven't seen much from him. In the first game against New Mexico, he looked pretty good, but they didn't ask him to do much. He only attempted 2 passes of 20-plus yards in that game. So we still haven't seen much from him, but from what we saw in that first game, he should be fine at home throwing the ball against Central Michigan. I'm not sure how much Michigan will throw it, and the fact that Central Michigan runs a super slow-paced option offense, the total for this game is down to 41.5. I think I would have to go with the Chippewas here. Is there a 28? There's a 28. Chippewas plus 28. I won't be betting this one, though, because I really think Central Michigan struggles to move the ball. But it'll be Central Michigan plus the points or pass. Wisconsin, Alabama. I mean, this one's just been bouncing back and forth. It looks like Wisconsin keeps getting hit at plus 21, and Alabama's getting hit at minus 20.5. So it's been back and forth a bunch of times here at Circa. Looks like they're buying Alabama at 20.5. They're buying Wisconsin at 21. Wisconsin, Alabama, and lead story here. Billy Edwards Jr. not going to – well, actually, he's listed as doubtful. He hasn't officially been ruled out, but looks like Billy Edwards Jr. not going to be playing quarterback in this one for Wisconsin, which means we're going to see Danny O'Neal again. We did see that he started the last game for Wisconsin, and he was fine. Wisconsin's offense, I mean, they struggled a little bit. That game was actually closer than the final score indicated. They kind of ran it up a little bit. But he was okay. They played Middle Tennessee, one of the worst defenses in the country for multiple years now. So not sure what we really take away from that. And like I said, it was actually 14-10 in the third quarter, and Middle Tennessee had the ball in Wisconsin territory. So that game was closer than the final score indicates. Wisconsin ran it up a little bit at the end. This Wisconsin offense really doesn't look all that great. And heading into Tuscaloosa, I had said coming into the season that I expect Alabama's defense to be one of the best in the country. Certainly wasn't looking that way in the opener. Castellanos and Florida State, they were doing whatever they wanted to Alabama. They gave up 31 points in that game, over 6 yards per play. They bounced back in a major way. They shut Louisiana Monroe out, 25.5% success rate. I mean, elite defensive performance from Alabama in week 2. It is Louisiana Monroe. I'm not going to let that one game against Florida State take me off Alabama's defense. Keep in mind, Gus Malzahn took over as OC. It was the first game there with Castellanos, a new roster. I mean, Alabama had no idea what to expect from that offense. They had no film on anything. So Malzahn was definitely holding a little bit of advantage in terms of he had the element of surprise. Kind of got caught off guard there. I still think Alabama is one of the best defenses in the country despite that Florida State game. So, yeah, I think Wisconsin's really going to struggle to move the ball in this one. On the other side of the ball, though, this is where things look much better for Wisconsin. This defense was getting a little bit of hype coming into the season. Fickle had said that he wanted to get Wisconsin back to their old identity, run the ball, play some defense. And the offense certainly doesn't look great, but defense has played well. Through 2 games, they're allowing 5 points per game, 34% success rate, under 3.5 yards per play. I mean, yes, they played who they played, Miami of Ohio and Middle Tennessee. Not exactly great teams and some bad offenses there. But at least they're FBS opponents. It's not like they're playing FCS opponents. So Wisconsin's defense is looking as good as advertised right now. They're matched up against Ty Simpson and the Alabama offense, who really didn't look all that great in the opener. I mean, it was his first career start on the road, but his numbers didn't look great, did not handle pressure well. It was under a lot of pressure, too, from the Florida State defense. just like the Alabama defense, he bounced back in a major way in week 2, was essentially perfect in that game against Louisiana Monroe. I do like this Wisconsin defense, and I think they're equipped to give Ty Simpson some problems. I think they're able to slow Alabama's offense down a little bit. We saw what Florida State did. The problem is that first game, like I said, it was Ty Simpson's first career start. He was on the road. Now he's got a couple games experience. He's at home. And honestly, I just don't expect – I can't count on Wisconsin's offense to do anything here. So as much as I think 21 is a big number and Wisconsin's defense, laying 3 touchdowns to a defense that good just doesn't feel right. But I can't see Wisconsin moving the ball in this game. Billy O'Neill, I could see him turning the ball over. So it'll be Alabama minus 21 or nothing for me. UConn on the road in Delaware. UConn coming off a real tough loss. I mean, I think most people who watched that Syracuse game would agree UConn should have won. I mean, Syracuse had kind of a miracle comeback, and if you had UConn plus 6.5, if you had UConn plus 6.5, you played it wrong because you could have got 7 or more for most of the week. But if you had UConn plus 6.5, I feel for you. That's the definition of a bad beat. Syracuse ends up winning the game by a touchdown in overtime, and I think most people who watched would agree that UConn was probably the stronger team for most of that game. So you'd think, coming off that one, they played well. The score isn't a good indication of how the game went. You would think, following that up, playing a team like Delaware, that UConn should handle their business. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but we got to give Delaware some credit. Keep in mind, this is a team that lost its quarterback in the opener. Zach Marker got injured, I think, on the first or second series of the opener. So this is a Delaware team that loses their quarterback immediately after the season starts. They've got a backup quarterback in there. His name's Minicucci. Minicucci, I think. Yeah, Minicucci. He's been playing pretty well. Look at the 2 games. I mean, they actually have a passing attack here. 292 passing yards per game, over 45% success rate per dropback. This is with a backup quarterback, and they just went into Boulder. They were moving the ball in Colorado. I know they only scored 7 points, but they were moving the football in that game. They turned it over on downs twice in Colorado territory. They fumbled in Colorado territory. They threw an interception in Colorado territory. So this Delaware passing attack was working in Boulder. So this backup quarterback for Delaware might be pretty good. And this is a UConn defense that, first of all, lost most of its pieces from last year. They were a very strong defense in 2024. Most of those players are gone. And they're still missing a starting corner in Malachi McLean. I think he's still out. I think he got injured in the opener. I forget exactly the details on that. But I think Malachi McLean, their CB1, is still out for UConn. So I don't think it's crazy to say Delaware can complete some passes and move the football on the UConn defense in this game. And look, the UConn offense didn't look they played well against Syracuse. The offense didn't look all that fluent. Fagnano's numbers did not look all that great at all. 73.7 QB rating in the game. It was really more UConn's defense that played well against Syracuse. So as far as betting the game, I mean, I guess now that it's down to 8.5, it would have to be UConn. But I think the move was to grab Delaware at double digits. This is at plus 10.5 for a while. So at the current number, I'll say UConn. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this game comes down to the wire. Oregon State, Texas Tech. Texas Tech looks elite on paper so far this year, but they've played Kent State and Arkansas Pine Bluff, and it kind of looks like they're intentionally running the score up on these teams. So, yeah, their numbers look like video game numbers. Looks like they're trying to make statements here early. They're beating the hell out of these teams, laying 50, 55 points in these games and covering. As far as their matchup against Oregon State is, look, this is not a good Oregon State team. They're way better than Kent State or Arkansas Pine Bluff, like not even in the same discussion. So this is by far Texas Tech's toughest test. They are the significantly better team, but 23.5 is a super inflated number. I think we're getting a few extra points added on there just due to the fact of what Texas Tech did in the first 2 games. But in my opinion, there's a lot of strong teams that could do that to Kent State and Arkansas Pine Bluff. A lot of teams choose not to. Texas Tech did it to them. They crushed them. So 23.5 is too many points. Here's the problem. Here's why I don't have a bet on Oregon State, even though my pick for this game would be Oregon State plus the points. Here's why I don't have a bet on it. The way the first 2 games went for Texas Tech, I feel like if Texas Tech is up 17 in this game and gets the ball back in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes left Any normal team up 3 scores is going to hand the ball off, chew the rest of the clock out, go home. I think Texas Tech is still throwing the ball at that point. I mean, they look like they're trying to make a statement and intentionally blow teams out. So even though I do think 23.5 is too many, I'm scared to fade Texas Tech, especially in Lubbock, and especially with an Oregon State team that doesn't look very good at all. Now, if you are trying to get to Oregon State, there's some injuries on the Texas Tech side. Outside linebacker Charles Esters is out. Their edge rusher, too, Romello Height, that's a starting edge rusher for them. He's listed as questionable. And Horn, their starting corner, he's listed as questionable as well. He missed last week. So there's actually some key injuries on the Texas Tech defense. Look, it's Oregon State. They're the significantly better team, but the injuries to Texas Tech's defense, the fact that we might be getting an inflated number due to the fact that Texas Tech just routed some really bad team. Kent State should be in the FCS. So it would be Oregon State plus the big number here. I could really see I could really see this being a 6-point game in the fourth quarter and somehow Texas Tech winning by 27 when it was like, how the hell did they cover that? So Oregon State plus the points. As of right now, I don't have a bet. How about this? Hey, you have my word. If a 24 pops in this game, I'll bet Oregon State. If a 24 pops. Right now, it's 23.5 across the board. You have my word. If I see a 24 at any moment, I will grab Oregon State. USC's on the road against Purdue. Honestly, copy and paste a lot of what I just said about Texas Tech. Apply it to USC. Lincoln Riley looked like he's trying to make some statements here with these early games. They absolutely blew out their first 2 opponents. But unlike Texas Tech, they actually did it again. Well, they did it against more respectable opponents. I don't know if I'm going to call Missouri State and Georgia Southern respectable, but in comparison to Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Kent State, they're much more respectable. So how about that? That's a good way to phrase it. Now they're going to go out on the road. Obviously, if we're looking at USC's numbers on the year, they're going to look pretty good. They're averaging 66 points per game. 66. They're allowing 16.5. Yeah, obviously the numbers look great. They played 2 home games against bad teams. Now you might be saying, Kyle, who cares? Purdue is also a bad team. There's truth to that. But here's why I am considering taking Purdue here. My pick for this game is definitely Purdue. Here's why I'm actually considering betting it. So I think I had a take in the offseason. I had said repeatedly that Purdue didn't give Ryan Walters a fair shake. I'm a Ryan Walters fan. Thought it was a good hire. They only gave him 2 years. He didn't have the strongest rosters to work with here. And Purdue moved on from Ryan Walters. They bring in Barry Odom. And this is where I think I was wrong. Purdue clearly looks better defensively. They look more physical. It looks like Barry Odom was a clear upgrade from Ryan Walters. So I think my take on that might have been wrong. This Purdue team does feel a bit different. They haven't really played anybody, but the defense looks strong. And Ryan Walters is a defensive coach, and we didn't really see any strong defensive performances from Purdue in his short tenure. So this Purdue team already has a different feel to it with Barry Odom. In the first 2 games, they're allowing less than 4.4 yards per play. Again, they haven't played anybody, but this year's Purdue team just feels different. And honestly, the main reason that I'm considering taking the points with Purdue is right here. Let's not forget what happened with USC last year. When did USC struggle most last year? Their true road Big Ten games. There were 3 of them. At Michigan, at Minnesota, at Maryland. Those 3 games. Now, they went to Washington, which technically is a road Big Ten game, but they've been going to Washington for years. That's not new. They were in the Pac-12 together or the Pac-10 together. So there are 3. Remember, USC was new in the Big Ten last year. Their first year, they had 3 new road Big Ten games that were not previously on their schedule. At Michigan, at Minnesota, at Maryland. They were a favorite by more than a field goal in all 3. They lost all 3 outright, averaging just 23 points per game, under 5.5 yards per play. So these true road Big Ten games for USC last year did not go well. They lost all 3 outright. They were favored by more than a field goal in all of them. So here we have a true road Big Ten game. Yes, it is Purdue, but Maryland wasn't any good last year. Minnesota was all right. They lost those games. Purdue has a different feel to it. I don't know how you lay 3 touchdowns. Boilermakers, give me Purdue plus the points. I think this one's close. South Florida on the road at Miami, and people are still disrespecting South Florida. 2-0 to start the year against Boise State and the Gators. Come on. How has this team not garnered some respect? Shout out to the girl on Twitter who has a vote in the AP polls, and that video is hilarious for those of you that haven't seen it. I really think, and I've said this, I've been saying it all off season, I really think this South Florida defense is going to be strong this year. We've seen it already. They made a hire. They brought in Todd Orlando to be the DC. That was before the 2023 season. And up to that point, South Florida was known as a team that has a shitty defense. They just were not known as a defensive program. They bring in Todd Orlando to be the DC. Immediately, his first 2 years coaching the defense, they get better. They're a top 100 defense in comparison to a bottom 25 defense. So immediately gets better. This year, this is the first time Todd Orlando brings back most of the production on the defensive side. I really thought this South Florida defense was going to be strong this year. And how did they start? Well, they played Boise State and Florida, two borderline, top 25 teams probably, or fringe top 25 teams. They're allowing 11.5 points per game, under 5 yards per play. This defense looks excellent. Nobody's really talking about it. The opener, the lead story was, Boise State drops the opener. It was all about Boise State. It was all about Byron Brown being healthy, which is cool. Byron Brown's the man. But no one was talking about this South Florida defense. They go into the swamp, beat Florida. What's everyone talking about? Napier, DJ Lagway. No one's talking about how South Florida's defense went to the swamp and played excellent. I feel like the South Florida defense is flying under the radar. It's playing well. No one's really talking about it. That being said, this is going to be quite the test. They're going up against a Miami offense that I'm not going to say looks as explosive as the Cam Ward Miami offense last year, but it looks pretty damn good so far. The way they were moving the ball in that Notre Dame game, it was impressive. Carson Beck looks comfortable already. Look, do I think South Florida is going to stop this offense? Not really, but I still think the market is undervaluing how strong this South Florida defense is. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are able to give Miami's offense some problems. I'm a little worried they might be missing a corner, though. James Chenault, who is a starting corner for South Florida, he actually had an interception in the Boise game. He's listed as questionable, and Miami might be getting their receiver back. JoJo Trader, he was injured in the Notre Dame game. He might be back. So in terms of the defense, not great news on either side there. South Florida might be missing a corner. Miami might be getting a receiver back. But still, as I've said a number of times, I trust Todd Orlando. I think this South Florida defense is strong. I don't think they'll get pieced up like that. Now, on the other side, this is where South Florida's defense, I trust. South Florida's offense, I think, is getting a little bit blown out. It hasn't really looked that good in the first two games. Even that first game against Boise, Boise kept fumbling the ball, and South Florida was really struggling to move the chains. Byron Brown completed a few passes to make the stats look okay. But, this South Florida offense has a success rate below 37%. They haven't been consistently moving the ball. So this Miami defense is strong. I was really impressed with the defensive front in the opener. I think this defensive line is better than it was last year. I think South Florida is really going to struggle to move the ball here. That being said, I won't lay 17.5 to South Florida. I think this is a strong team. So my pick for the game is South Florida plus the points. But I think under 56.5 would probably be my favorite bet here. Middle Tennessee, Nevada. How is this team laying 9.5 points? The disrespect to Middle Tennessee. Nevada's one of the worst teams in the country. Now, are they better than Middle Tennessee? Probably. 9.5 points? That's absolutely nuts. Now, there are some injuries to the Middle Tennessee. There's a key receiver out. We'll talk about it. But just right off the bat, no way in hell will I be laying 9.5 points with Nevada. That's crazy. Yes, Middle Tennessee's been bad. So has Nevada. This is not a good football team. This is a team that lost mostly everybody from last year. They have a head coach that everyone loves in Jeff Choate. And honestly, Jeff Choate's a cool coach. I like him too. It's just 9.5 points is crazy. The market's gotten out of control here. Nevada just gave up 6.18 yards per play to Sacramento State last week, which is an FCS program. Now, Sacramento State is a strong FCS program, but they just squeaked out a win. I think Sacramento State's about to be an FBS program next year or the year after. They just squeaked out a win against Sacramento State. And the reason we're getting 9.5 here with Middle Tennessee is this one data point. Austin Peay. Middle Tennessee looked terrible. They got beat outright. They got beat handedly outright on their home field by Austin Peay, another strong FCS program. So this one data point is why the line's up at 9.5. Are we just going to pretend that Middle Tennessee wasn't playing Wisconsin tough in Madison last week? Midway through the third quarter, that game was 14-10. Middle Tennessee had the ball in Wisconsin territory to potentially take the lead. So Middle Tennessee just went into Wisconsin, into Madison, and was playing Wisconsin tough. Look, Wisconsin ended up running up the score a little bit at the end, But this Middle Tennessee team, there was some optimism coming into this season. They've got a multi-year starter back at quarterback. They've got a lot of production back on the offensive line. There was some optimism coming into the season for Middle Tennessee. It seems like one really bad game against Austin Peay is kind of just, everyone just threw that out. Now, like I said earlier, Middle Tennessee is missing a key receiver. Gary Carter's out. So they're going to be missing Gary Carter. I think they're actually missing one of their other receivers as well. So, yeah, I mean, they're banged up. They're missing a piece on the defense as well. So, yeah, Middle Tennessee's dealing with some injuries, but 9.5, Jeff Choate is getting way too much respect. Yes, is he the better coach over Derek Mason? Absolutely. But in terms of the roster, I don't know how much better Nevada is than Middle Tennessee. That's not a good football team. So, give me Middle Tennessee plus the points. ODU on the road to play Virginia Tech. And, I mean, this number is so long gone that I don't even know if it's worth talking about at this point. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you that Virginia Tech's been struggling to start the season. If you own a smartphone, you already know that. Some embarrassing performances so far. The South Carolina game, they even played them tough, still found a way to lose by 2 touchdowns. So I have Old Dominion plus 12.5 in pocket. So I got an excellent number. I think it's down to like 5.5 now. So that number is so long gone. What Diego Pavia did to the Virginia Tech defense in the second half last week should be illegal. That was a destruction. How do you allow 8.6 yards per play at home in Blacksburg to Vanderbilt? How do you do that? I mean, that is rock bottom for this Virginia Tech program. Virginia Tech's not in a good place right now. And by the way, just talking about what Diego Pavia did to Virginia Tech, Colton Joseph is a very similar quarterback. He's a dual threat guy. He's a tough runner, very similar to Pavia. Honestly, their play styles are pretty close. Who's to say Colton Joseph can't do the same thing? This Old Dominion team looks very strong. This is one of those sneaky Sun Belt teams that's actually pretty good. Obviously, I love my bet. I got a full touchdown of value. I'm on Old Dominion plus 12.5. I was considering middling, just taking Virginia Tech plus minus 5.5. But honestly, I don't even know if I'd be taking Virginia Tech at the 5.5. That's how crazy this is. So yeah, I'm on Old Dominion, but the number's long gone. Georgia, Tennessee, another one that you probably already know what's been going on because it was such a big move. Opened up around a touchdown. I actually heard that you could have got a 7.5 on some rec books for Tennessee, all the way down to 3.5. And it was sitting at 3.5 for a couple days there, back up to 4. Limits are now 30K, and it looks like Georgia got hit at minus 3.5. At the time of recording, this is sitting at 4. Georgia, Tennessee, dogs got them again last year. I believe that makes 8 in a row. 8 straight wins for Georgia over Tennessee and 13 of the last 15. So, yeah, safe to say Georgia hasn't had problems with this Tennessee team. And honestly, most of them are not close. So Georgia usually beats up on Tennessee pretty good, at least in recent years. I will say for Tennessee is these defensive numbers don't really tell the story. It's pretty much the Syracuse game that's skewing them. Syracuse put up some decent offensive numbers against Tennessee in that game. But if you watched it, and I did watch it because I had Syracuse plus 14, Angeli was making a lot of circus plays that he probably couldn't make again. I mean, type of play where it's like 3rd and 6 and he's wrapped up in the backfield, but somehow gets his arm out and flips it to a tight end who somehow gets the first down, where it's like, they could never do that again. Like circus plays, broken plays. Credit to Angeli for making the plays, but if you look at Syracuse offensive numbers in that game, it looks like Syracuse was kind of piecing Tennessee up. It's not exactly how I would have described that game. They were moving the ball and they were scoring some points, but there was a lot of circus plays in there. I think this Tennessee defense is very strong, and I had said that coming into the year. They bring back a lot of production from last season. The problem is they're going to be missing both starting corners in this game. Jermon McCoy hasn't played all year, and then Gibson got hurt in the Syracuse game. So that's CB1 and CB2. They're missing both their starting corners in this game. Now, is Gunnar Stockton able to exploit it on the sidelines? We'll see. It is his first true road game, which is kind of crazy because he played in a college football playoff game. He played in the SEC championship game, but he's never started a road game, which is kind of crazy to think about. So maybe if you're a Tennessee fan, Gunnar Stockton in a true road game, if you want to exploit the corners, he's going to have to make throws to the sideline. He's going to have to throw the ball downfield. Who knows if he's able to do that in what's going to be a very harsh road environment. So there's an angle for you if you like Tennessee. Unfortunately, when it comes to Georgia, their first 2 games were against Marshall and Austin Peay. So we haven't learned anything about this Georgia team. And if you've been following Georgia over the years, Kirby Smart doesn't give a shit about these games. They almost never cover. I had a guest on the show that was talking about it. It was like Georgia's record against the spread when they're 21-plus point favorites is terrible. Kirby Smart's not the type of guy that just blows teams out for no reason. Tennessee does that. Georgia never does that. So we're looking at these numbers against Austin Peay and Marshall. This doesn't really tell us anything. The offensive numbers look great, but they played Austin Peay and Marshall. So who cares, honestly? Personally, on this side of the ball, missing those two corners, I think Georgia's going to move the football in this game. They always seem to figure out a way to move the football against Tennessee, even when their defense is great. So I think Georgia's going to move the ball in this game. On the other side, everyone loves Aguilar. I can't unsee what I saw last year. Turned the ball over a lot at App State. It was a disappointing season. App State was one of the favorite. I think they might have been the preseason favorite to win the Sun Belt Conference. Didn't even finish the season above 500. And Joey Aguilar was a part of that. I'm not saying putting the whole season on him, but he underperformed. In 2023, I believe he was the Sun Belt Newcomer of the Year or Offensive Player of the Year or something. He won an award in 2023. 2024 was a very disappointing season, and that was against Sun Belt defenses. This is Georgia. Now, granted, Georgia's defense hasn't been tested at all. So looking at these numbers, who knows? But it's Kirby Smart. It's Georgia. This defense is going to be elite. So even though you look at Aguilar's numbers so far, they look excellent. Those numbers were against East Tennessee State and Syracuse, who hasn't played defense in a couple years now. If you remember, Nico was putting up the same type of numbers early in the season last year when they were playing easy opponents. So I'm not taking anything away from these numbers. I think Aguilar might turn the ball over. I don't really trust the Tennessee offense. But what I liked about the Tennessee offense last year was Dylan Sampson and that offensive line. They lost 4 starters from that offensive line, and Dylan Sampson is now on the Browns. So what I liked about the Tennessee offense last year, it's not there this year. So I don't trust Tennessee to move the ball. It would only be Georgia. I did bet the under. I'm holding an under 50.5. It looks like you can still get that too. So I have a bet on the under. I also lean Georgia. It looks like the 3.5. Oh, no, you can still get a 3.5. So under 50.5, Georgia minus 3.5 for me. Pittsburgh, West Virginia. This one was at 4 a few days ago. The money's been coming in pretty one-sided on this one. It looks like everyone with influence is hammering Pitt. It's up to 7.5 now at 20K limits. Pittsburgh, West Virginia, the backyard brawl. This is the game of the day right here. I mean, there's a lot of great games on, but in terms of just entertainment value, this will be worth the price of admission. If you're unfamiliar with college football, this is probably top 3 or 4 best rivalries that exist. And I mean, it goes way back. And this place is going to be rocking. Morgantown's going to be going crazy for this. Rich Rodriguez is back at head coach. Now, entering the season, I don't want to speak for West Virginia fans, but I don't know if they were necessarily expecting much in year one. I think this year was more about just excited to have Rich Rodriguez back and get things on the right track. Last year's defense was historically bad. So as far as expectations entering this season, I think it was more like, hey, I don't think we expect much from the defense. The offense with Rich Rodriguez, I'm sure it'll show flashes, but I don't think West Virginia had crazy expectations entering the season. That being said, we're 2 games into the season, and I'll speak for myself. This is kind of the complete opposite of what I was expecting. Through 2 games, West Virginia, whose defense was terrible last year, they have outstanding defensive numbers. They're allowing 10 points per game, 28.7% success rate. They have outstanding defensive numbers, which this defense was terrible last year. Rich Rod's an offensive coach. Like, I was not expecting this at all. That being said, they haven't looked good in either game, and they just lost to the Ohio Bobcats. So West Virginia doesn't look good, but the defense has excellent numbers. That's probably the opposite of what I was expecting. I was expecting West Virginia to show slight improvements this year. Offensively, defense was going to take a year. The defense is actually playing pretty well. So not what I was expecting so far from West Virginia. We'll see if these elite defensive numbers hold up. Obviously, we're getting into some tougher competition now. Pittsburgh's offense looks Pittsburgh looks very strong on both sides of the ball, for being honest. Couple injuries here. Obviously, West Virginia, Jaheim White out for the season, running back. I'm sure you've heard that. Wide receiver Jaden Bray out for the season for West Virginia. They got a linebacker, Carico. Sorry if I'm saying that correctly. He's listed as questionable. Jamori Robinson, who will probably be West Virginia's best defensive player. He was, I believe, disputing eligibility stuff. He has been cleared to play from the NCAA. I'm not sure if he'll play in this game. So there's another West Virginia piece. He hasn't played yet this year, but it would have been nice to have him on the edge on the West Virginia defense. So there's some injuries on the West Virginia side. On the Pitt side, couple corners out for Pitt, Lynham and Battle, but I believe they're CB3 and CB4. I don't think they're the main two guys, but missing a couple corners in terms of the depth there for Pitt. Sorry, I just wanted to get that in there. Anyway, back to Pitt. They look very strong on both sides of the ball. Haven't played anybody yet. It's clear that Pittsburgh is definitely the stronger team this year, and that's not going off the two games we've seen. That's going off of what we expected in the rosters entering the season as well. So based on the way these rosters are put together, I understand why West Virginia is catching a touchdown, but based on the history between these two teams, I don't know how you lay a touchdown on the road with Pitt. The backyard brawl is crazy. I'm going to play this clip from Moneyline Mac, who is a West Virginia Mountaineer himself.
Mac, why is West Virginia going to win the game outright?
Well, I had my assistant pull up the analytics, and Pitt hasn't covered this game since 91. This number, yada, yada, yada. Pitt's 6-6 in their last 12 games, and they're being treated like Penn State. But I don't give a shit about the analytics of this game. You know what this game's about? Rich Rodriguez. Asked about 2007 today. Worst loss in his coaching career.
It was.
Talked about it. Said it was the darkest day ever. 18 years he's had to sit on this. All of us Mountaineers have had to sit on this for 18 goddamn years. And Pitt's coming in here as a 7-point favorite? What has Pitt done to deserve to be a 7-point favorite in the backyard brawl? Nah. They want to play 7-on-7. This shit at Morgantown's going to be a fist fight, street fight, backyard brawl. Drag it in the mud, baby. Old Mountaineer style, Mountaineer football, Mountaineer pride. Lock. Play my music. Eat shit, Pitt. West Virginia by a fucking million. These cowards. Let's fucking go.
Moneyline Mac. Lock it up, West Virginia.
Home sweet home to me.
Yeah, you heard them. They take this very seriously. That place is going to be a crime scene. Pittsburgh has not beaten West Virginia by more than a touchdown in like 25 years. I'm on West Virginia here, and I got the worst of the number. I'm on West Virginia plus 6.5. I also have small bet on West Virginia money line. This is going to be a good one. Washington State, North Texas. A lot of action in this one, bouncing around between 4.5, 5.5. They have the limits to 10K. It looks like Washington State got hit at that point. You could have got a good number on North Texas on some rec books early, which I did. I'll talk about it in a second. At the time of recording, it looks like it's sitting at 5 with 20K limits. Washington State, North Texas, got a good number in this one. Grabbed it as soon as I saw it on Sunday afternoon. It was just a perfect buy low, sell high spot for each team here. Washington State coming off a great performance at home against San Diego State. This is not a great team. They played great in that game, and San Diego State played pretty terribly. So just the sell high in that respect. That was also at home in Pullman. Now they're on the road all the way down to North Texas. Meanwhile, I'm really looking at the other side, though. North Texas, remember, last couple of years before this one, Eric Morris North Texas teams, they've been very strong offenses. They can't stop anybody. But then they brought in Skylar Cassidy, the defensive coordinator, comes from Sam Houston, and this defense has turned around a little bit. In fact, the defense is playing pretty well so far this year. So then last week, they go up to Western Michigan, and the final score of that game was 33-30, went to overtime. So it looks like North Texas struggled with a bad Western Michigan team. But that's not really how it went. The final score is not an indication of how that game went. Western Michigan jumped out to an early lead. If you look at the numbers from that game, I mean, North Texas was by far the better team. They averaged over 6.4 yards per play. Western Michigan was 4.27. So, I mean, North Texas was far better than Western Michigan in that game. So we're getting a North Texas team back at home, coming off a game where the final score makes it look like it was close. I got a North Texas minus 3.5 here. What is it at now? 5.5? I would still play this under a touchdown. I think North Texas wins this one comfortably. I don't think Washington State's very good. So I'm on North Texas here. Arkansas, Ole Miss, another one where the money's been coming in pretty one-sided, although there's some injury updates that could have been influencing some movement as well. But this one was 9. Arkansas has been getting hit pretty consistently. It's now down under a touchdown, limits at 20K. Arkansas, Ole Miss, this Hogs offense, man, absolute problem. Look at these numbers so far this year. Taylor Green, this offense looks unstoppable, and they're matched up against an Ole Miss defense that they lost like 7 NFL players from last year. So this Ole Miss defense is a shell of what it was last year, and so far this season it's showing. In their first 2 games against Georgia State and Kentucky, who, by the way, Georgia State, not a great Sun Belt program, and Kentucky, okay, solid defense. That's not a strong offense there in Kentucky. So Ole Miss defense starting the season off against 2, let's call it subpar offenses. They're allowing over 5 yards per carry, over 181 rushing yards per game. So all those NFL players missing from the Ole Miss defensive front, we're seeing it here. Ole Miss is struggling to stop the run right now. And matched up against an Arkansas offense that, like I said, looks so explosive. It's hard to find a path where Arkansas isn't moving the ball consistently in this game. Keep in mind, last year Ole Miss defense was loaded. I mean, I can't believe they didn't go to the college football playoff with that defense. But last year, Ole Miss defense was loaded. Arkansas still put up 31 points on them. This is last year's Ole Miss defense that was loaded. Over 7.5 yards per play, 49.2% success rate on offense. Arkansas was moving the ball in Ole Miss last year. Now, they scored 31 points. I'm pretty sure Ole Miss scored like 60. Ole Miss beat the hell out of them, but Arkansas was moving the football in that game. So Arkansas bringing back a bunch of production from last year against an Ole Miss defense that's a shell of itself. I like Arkansas to move the ball in this game. It's really the other side of the ball that's concerning for Arkansas. I mean, I know so far this year their defensive numbers look okay, but this was not a good defense last year. I don't really expect it to be a good defense this year. And on the road in Ole Miss, granted, it's not the Ole Miss offense from last year with Trey Harris and everything. It's not that offense. But this is still, they've got playmakers here. And I think Arkansas defense is going to get ripped apart, honestly. I think these numbers on this graphic here on the left side are going to look more yellow-red after this game. Now, the good news for Arkansas is Austin Simmons may not play in this game. Who knows? He got hurt in the Kentucky game in the fourth quarter. Lane Kiffin said he could have come back in the game if needed. But, like, what do you mean could have come back in the game if needed? They only won by a score. It was like an 8-point game or something. So, I don't know. So, from what I'm reading, he's on track to play. Who knows? Austin Simmons is the quarterback for Ole Miss, by the way. Regardless, I think Ole Miss is going to score points on Arkansas, regardless of who. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback, honestly. So, Ole Miss, we poked holes in the defense from the first 2 games. The offense has been fine. They're averaging 46.5 points per game. Austin Simmons has thrown a few picks, so maybe a little turnover prone, but I think they should not have any problems moving the ball in Arkansas, which is why I grabbed the over as soon as I saw it. I think I got 58.5 or 59.5. What's in that now? 1 second. It's at 62.5. So I got a good number here. I'd still play it. I'd play it up to 64. So I'm on the over in this one. Florida LSU, another game where the action has been pretty one-sided. This one was up at 9. They upped the limits to 20K. Looks like they got hit with even more Florida money. Now down to a flat 7. Limits at 30K. Florida LSU, Gators got them last year in the swamp. 27-16 was the final score. This year is obviously not in the swamp. We're in Death Valley now. And that LSU defense is turning some heads so far this year. What they did against Clemson, I mean, that was extremely impressive. They go on the road there. They held Clemson at, I think it was 10 points. Yeah, it was 17-10, the final score. And yeah, maybe it doesn't look as good right now, watching Clemson struggle to move the ball against Troy. So all of a sudden that looks slightly less impressive. But no question, this LSU defense is turning some heads so far this year. And the talk of college football since last week has been Florida losing to South Florida in the game. They were held to 16 points. So coming into this game here, the narratives will say LSU defense is turning heads. Florida's offense just lost to South Florida. Weirdly enough, DJ Lagway was under very little pressure in the South Florida game, just 7.9% of his dropbacks, and he still put up some really ugly-looking numbers. And I have my doubts on Florida being able to move the football in this game against an LSU defense that's clearly better than last year. So I'm worried about Florida moving the football. That being said, on the other side of the ball, it's not really being talked about because the defense played so well in the Clemson game. LSU is yet to play a good offensive game this season. They haven't played one good offensive game. They've only played 2 games, so let's not go crazy. But the offense looked bad in both of them. Look at their offensive numbers on the year. Yes, it's only been 2 games, but last week they had a home game against Louisiana Tech. Sonny Cumbie had the LSU offense bottled up. 4.87 yards per play, 23 points at home against Louisiana Tech. I mean, that Clemson game, the defense won that game. The offense had a late drive there to take the lead, but the offense didn't look all that great in the Clemson game. This LSU offense doesn't look right now. Garrett Nussmeier really hasn't looked all that great. Here are his numbers from the first 2 games. He's not setting the world on fire. He's not looking like an NFL draft pick right now. And they're matched up against a Florida defense that, remember, coming into the season, Florida was supposed to have a very strong defense, and Caleb Banks has not played yet. That's their big 330-pound defensive tackle in the middle there. He's on track to be back for this one. So Caleb Banks right in the middle, making his season debut against LSU, and that's what my bet is based on. I think Florida's defense is going to play really well in this game. I got some good numbers in this one. I got the under 52.5, which is, it's now down to, it's 46.5 now. So I got a great number on the total, and I got Florida plus 9.5. It's now down to 7.5. It's down to 7 on a couple books. So hopefully if you got the text alerts, you got some good numbers on this one. I'm on Florida plus the points and the under. Texas A&M Notre Dame, and there are definitely sharp bettors that are on the Notre Dame side here. It originally got bought up from 6.5 to 7. They upped the limits. It looks like Texas A&M got hit at 7, down to 6.5. A&M got hit again down to 6. But as soon as it got dropped down to 6, it immediately went back up to 6.5. So there are influential bettors out there taking Notre Dame at 6.
Another game where I can't find the footage. I recorded this one, but I'm on Texas A&M here. I took the plus 6.5. I wish I waited until a few hours later. I could have got a plus 7, but I'm on the plus 6.5, and I actually have a little bit on the money line too. I think Texas A&M is one of the best teams in the country. I don't really understand the argument for Notre Dame at this big number. I honestly think this should be closer to a field goal. Disrespectful to Texas A&M. It's a revenge game from last year, and Marcel Reese wasn't even the quarterback. Connor Wegman was the quarterback last year, and he played terribly in that game. He threw a really bad pick. Texas A&M, you could argue, outplayed Notre Dame last year. This number's disrespectful. I'm on the Aggies.
Jacksonville State, Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern off to really rough start this season. Granted, they did play 2 road games, and they were both on the West Coast, so kind of an unfortunate start to the schedule there for Georgia Southern. They're finally making their home debut here, their home opener, I should call it, against Jacksonville State. In my opinion, this is the perfect opportunity for Georgia Southern to really open the offense up. If you're unfamiliar with Clay Helton, that's the head coach for Georgia Southern, comes from USC. This is a guy who can score points. He can throw the ball. He can scheme up some really nice passing attacks, and he can score points. The criticism of Clay Helton is he never has a defense. So that's kind of the structure of this Georgia Southern team. We haven't seen it yet this year. They opened up the season out on the West Coast, and then week 2 they played – who the hell did they play? Oh, they played Fresno first. And then, right, they played Fresno in week 1, USC in week 2. And, yes, not moving the ball against Fresno is concerning. 33.3% success rate on offense, just 14 points in the game. It was a bad performance. But both those games were on the West Coast. They come home against a Jacksonville State defense that looks bad. And specifically, they look bad against the pass. Keep in mind, Jacksonville State has played 2 games so far this year. Central Florida, who that was the opener, Scott Frost just takes over this new team. No start. I think there's only 1 starter on the whole team on both sides of the ball back. So they played Central Florida with a brand new team and a brand new coach in their first game. And then they played Liberty, who is really struggling. And they're still allowing over 324 passing yards per game, over 10.5 yards per pass attempt. Jacksonville State looks like they can't cover anybody. So Georgia Southern getting a home game finally against a team that can't seem to cover anybody. It feels like the perfect storm for a game where Clay Helton could really open the offense up and put up a big number. So I expect Georgia Southern to move the ball pretty fluently in this game. On the other side, this is where I have no idea how you can trust Georgia Southern. Their defense, first of all, their defense was terrible last year, and they lost Watson Trent, who's their inside linebacker. He was the Sun Belt Conference Defensive Player of the Year. So he was the DPOY in the conference. He was basically the only star on the defense because his defense wasn't good. He transferred out. I think he's at Nebraska now. So this defense, I didn't have much hope for it coming into the season. Granted, I'm not going to take too much away from getting lit up by USC. I mean, every single Group of 5 program gives up 70 points to USC, and they have no problem scoring 70. So I don't care too much about that. They did allow 42 points against Fresno, which is concerning. I really don't like this Georgia Southern defense at all. The good news is I don't like this Jacksonville State offense either. I mean, it's been bad. 22 points per game, 40% success rate so far this year. Wimsatt, he really doesn't give you much in terms of throwing the ball. Through the first 2 games against UCF and Liberty, he's averaging 95.5 passing yards per game. The passing numbers are terrible. They did run the ball over Liberty, so I suppose that's something. Probably going to be able to run the ball a little bit in this game against a Georgia Southern defense that isn't good, but I just don't think they can keep up. This is a perfect get-right spot for Georgia Southern. I think the offense looks great. I did lay it. I'm on Georgia Southern minus 3.5. I'd also lean towards the over here. Eastern Michigan on the road in Kentucky. It's starting to get tough to defend Chris Creighton. I mean, how do you lose to Long Island University? How do you lose to the Sharks? 28-23. Eastern Michigan loses to LIU. That's a really, really bad loss. Scoop was making fun of me because I gassed up Chris Creighton. It's a really bad loss there. That being said, we have seen variations of this movie before. Chris Creighton has been at Eastern Michigan since 2014. We've seen this Eastern Michigan team, while not looking good at all, go on the road and beat Power 4 opponents. In 2017, they went on the road to Piscataway and beat Rutgers. The following year, they went on the road to Purdue, beat Purdue. The following year, they went on the road and beat Illinois. 2022, they went on the road and beat Arizona State in Tempe by 2 possessions. So Chris Creighton, yes, the Eastern Michigan team is very often disappointing. He doesn't have a ton to work with there, but he's shown us over the years on 4 different occasions his team can get up and beat Power 4 opponents, and they're matched up against a Kentucky offense that's rolling into this game with a backup quarterback. Calzada got hurt. I think he's been officially ruled out of this one. So we're not going to see Calzada at quarterback. I don't even trust Kentucky's offense with Calzada. So now you got an offense I don't even trust, and you're throwing in a quarterback named Cutter Boley. He's going to start this game. He's a redshirt freshman. His numbers last year were terrible, but, I mean, he played in 2 games, and it was like Texas, and I forget who the other game was, but it was an SEC opponent, I think. So his numbers from last year are terrible. He played in 2 very tough games. Look, Eastern Michigan's defense is terrible. By no means am I trying to gas up the Eastern Michigan defense. I'm just saying this Kentucky offense is already a little shaky. You throw in a backup freshman quarterback, Eastern Michigan might be able to get a little aggressive, do whatever they can to try to take away the run. They're not going to be able to take away the run, but maybe they could get a little aggressive up front. I took the points. I'm on Eastern Michigan here. Remember, Eastern Michigan can move the football. In the opener on the road against Texas State, they scored 27 points in the game, 5.84 yards per play, success rate over 44%. They've got Noah Kim at quarterback. He's a Michigan State recruit. Eastern Michigan can move the ball. They have a passing attack. So, look, on the road in Kentucky, is Eastern Michigan going to put up a big number? Probably not, but don't be surprised if Eastern Michigan is making this interesting. Chris Creighton has shown us he can beat Power 4 opponents. I took the points. Eastern Michigan plus, what is it at, 24.5? I think that's what I got, 24.5. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, another game where the sharp action has been pretty one-sided. Pretty much everyone with influence seems to be betting Vanderbilt here. It was up even high. I think it was 6.5 originally. It might have even been higher than that. I'm not sure. But this chart starts at 5.5. It's been pretty consistently Vanderbilt money. It's now at a flat 3. Vanderbilt got hit again when they up the limits to 20K. Vanderbilt got hit at 4. Now down to a flat 3. Vanderbilt, South Carolina. Vanderbilt had some magical moments in 2024, but the game against South Carolina was not one of them. Final score was 28-7, and that offense looked bad. I mean, Vanderbilt's offense couldn't do anything against South Carolina. I will say the Vandy's defense played pretty well in that game. South Carolina, they scored a couple touchdowns late. I think they broke a couple big plays. Because that was a pretty close game, and then South Carolina scored a couple touchdowns late to make it look like a beatdown. But in terms of the South Carolina defense against the Vanderbilt offense, it was a beatdown. Vanderbilt could not do anything offensively. But that was last year. This year's Vanderbilt offense, look at these numbers from Vanderbilt offensively so far this year. This is unreal. Looking like one of the most efficient offenses in the country. Yes, it's only been 2 games, and it's crazy to even look at these numbers. It's just, look at that. Look at all that green for the Vanderbilt offense. Last week, they go on the road to Blacksburg, which that's not an easy place to go move the ball. It never is. 44 points, over 61% success rate, 8.6 yards per play. On the road in Blacksburg against the Virginia Tech defense. That is impressive. This Vanderbilt offense deserves our respect. They are moving the football. I will say this is going to be a bit different, though. There was a lot of talk entering the season, myself included. I'm definitely guilty of it. Talking about South Carolina's defense losing all those pieces, talking about South Carolina's defense falling off. Well, so far that doesn't seem to be the case at all. Although I will say Vanderbilt's offense is going to be their toughest test. But through 2 games, South Carolina is allowing 10.5 points per game, 4.5 yards per play, 36.1% success rate. So South Carolina's defense has been excellent so far this year. So something's got to give here. South Carolina's defense has been playing great. Vanderbilt's offense has been steamrolling so far this season. I personally think Vanderbilt is going to move the ball in this game because I think that offense is just humming. Remember, they bring back a lot of their production from last year. The offensive line's better. Pavia is back for like his 13th year in college football. I think Vanderbilt's going to move the ball in this game. Corner for the South Carolina, Judge Collier, most likely not playing this game. I think he was seen on crutches. So South Carolina missing a piece there on defense. This Vanderbilt offense has made me a believer. I think they're going to move the football in this game. Now, on the other side, I think South Carolina is going to move the football too. And I know South Carolina's offense has been very underwhelming so far this year. They really didn't do much in the Virginia Tech game. And then even the South Carolina State game, they were struggling to move the ball a little bit. So I know some people are weary about the South Carolina offense right now. But Vanderbilt has no pass rush. He has no pass rush at all. And Sellers, so far this year, he's been really, really efficient when given a clean pocket. When he's running to problems is when he's experienced pressure. I really don't see Vanderbilt getting pressure on Lenore Sellers. I mean, they just played Virginia Tech, and I mean, obviously Vanderbilt bodied Virginia Tech, and Jones wasn't good at all. But it wasn't because of the pass rush. In fact, Kyron Jones wasn't under a lot of pressure at all. Just 20.6% of his dropbacks. If they only pressure Lenore Sellers on 20.6% of his dropbacks, I would imagine he's going to cook them over the top. They've got a couple big playmaking receivers there. So the lack of pass rush for Vanderbilt, I think Sellers is going to connect on a couple big ones here, which is why the way I would go is an over. What's this at now? I was looking at it earlier. 1 second. Here it is here. 48.5, a couple 49s. Give me over 49.5. I didn't bet this game. Vanderbilt's such a weird team. The line's now down to 3. Yeah, honestly, I might give me South Carolina -3 over 8.5. That's where I go with this game. As of right now, I don't have a bet in it, though. Duke, Tulane. This one crossed over 0 and then went back again. So originally, Circa had this at 3.5, and Duke was getting hit pretty consistently. It flipped all the way to Duke -1.5. So Duke was actually laying for a second, but Tulane +1.5 got bought up pretty quick. And then the money's been coming back towards the Tulane side. Got up to 2.5 again. Duke got hit again. We're now sitting at Tulane -2. Duke, Tulane, I got a bet in this game, and I like it. Duke is on the road in New Orleans. I guess the lead story would be the Mensa revenge game, right? Mensa returns to New Orleans. But what I want to talk about first is last week's game for Duke. And if you watched the live show, you might have heard me talk about this already. The final score here, 45-19 Illinois. It makes it look like Duke was absolutely blown out on their home field. And I mean, I guess 45-19 they were. That is not at all a representation of how that game went. Duke was moving the ball much more efficiently than Illinois was. Duke averaged almost 7 yards per play in that game. The story of that game was Duke turned the ball over 5 times, and Illinois turned the ball over 0 times. If you have a -5 turnover margin, you're going to lose every game handedly. You cannot win with a -5 turnover margin. But if you watch that game, if you just take out those 5 plays, and you can't just take out turnovers, I know, but if you just take out those 5 plays and just analyze the rest of the game, Duke was the stronger team. They averaged almost 7 yards per play, over 48% success rate. Mensa looked good. Mensa kind of made me a believer in that game. And there was also a crazy sequence of events there. There was a point, I think it was late in the first quarter. Yeah, I think it was late in the first quarter. Duke was up 3-0. Illinois completed a pass like on their own 40. The receiver fumbled it. Duke recovered. So it was going to be Duke ball on like the Illinois 40 up 3-0. Huge momentum turner there. They review it. They overturned the fumble and called it an incomplete pass, which was, I don't know how you overturned it. It was close, but whatever. They overturned it. Then Illinois ends up punting on like the next play. They punt. Duke muffs the punt, gives Illinois the ball in the 16. They score. So it goes from 3-0 Duke, and they have the ball in Illinois territory, to all of a sudden it's 7-3, and it was like 2 plays later. So it's just a huge momentum turn, and that was the story of the game, is Duke looked like the stronger team, but there was a turnover or just a momentum changer that just swung it back towards Illinois. But if you just analyze which offense was moving the ball more fluently, it was definitely Duke. Like I said, Darian Mensah was playing really well in the game. He was handling pressure well. Even the interception he threw, the turnovers, by the way, were 4 fumbles and 1 interception. And even the interception he threw, it wasn't even a bad throw. The DB made a crazy play to get it. If you watch the replay of that, it wasn't a terrible throw. It was a really, really nice interception. So I was really impressed by Mensah. And this is just not a great matchup for Tulane. And he's matched up against a Tulane defense that, I mean, other than Preston Stone throwing them a bunch of interceptions in the opener, hasn't been all that great. South Alabama was putting points up on them last week. Now, granted, they were up 33-17, and South Alabama scored a couple touchdowns late. But, I mean, they let South Alabama drive down the field, score a touchdown that would have tied it. They didn't get the 2-point conversion, but would have tied the game. So Tulane's defense hasn't looked all that great. I think Duke's going to move the football in this game. And on the other side, I mean, Duke's defensive front looks as good as advertised. Illinois has one of the best offensive lines in the country. One of the best offensive lines in the country. Against Duke's defensive line, 2.93 yards per carry, 37% success rate per rush. Illinois could not generate push against this Duke defensive line. And this is a Tulane offense that's been very reliant on the run so far. I mean... Retzlaff's passing numbers look pretty terrible. He's got an 80.8 QB rating, struggled with pressure, struggled from a clean pocket. Retzlaff has made some plays with his legs, but in terms of throwing the ball, he hasn't shown much yet this year. I mean, Tulane hasn't shown him much of a passing attack at all. All their damage has been on the ground, and this is a Duke defense that you're really going to struggle to run the ball on. So I like the matchup for the Duke defense too. As you probably guessed, I'm on Duke plus 1.5. I like this one. Let's go Dukies. Thanks for watching. We're going through 36 games on the live show. 36. We'll be live from 10 a.m. up to kickoff. So 2 straight hours, 36 games. It'll be more rapid fire. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a fun Saturday. Please remember to bet responsibly.